Over 2,000 years ago, ancient Chinese scholars observed the changing patterns in our natural world, the climate, the turning of the seasons, and astronomy. The scholars measured and divided the sun's annual movements into 24 equal parts, creating the 24 solar terms, which were used to govern agriculture in ancient China. Even to this day, this invention still guides the lives and traditions of hundreds of millions of Chinese people. Every year around April 19th, grain rain arrives. This is the best time to appreciate pony flowers, xiangchun sprouts, and fresh tea. People pay thanks to the legendary ancestor Changjie, who invented Chinese characters. Grain rain, the last solar term of spring. I've lived in the north of China for around 24 years, and every year when it gets to this solar term, which is Guyu, the xiangchun tree in my yard sprouts little shoots, and I invite great friends, Xiao, and we pick off the xiangchun from the tree, which is very, very fragrant, and cook it with eggs and enjoy a meal with some friends. So it's a really nice time of year in terms of the weather, in terms of the food, to get together and enjoy some time with friends. Xiangchun is a seasonal food unique to northern China. While in Xiaotao's hometown in Anhua, Hunan province, the rainy season means that in southern China, another leaf is becoming ripe and waiting to be picked: tea leaves. Anhua is the birthplace of Chinese dark tea. More than 1,200 years ago, it was an important point on the Silk Road. To transport tea beyond the mountains, people used horses and camels, treading the world-famous Chama Dao, the tea trail. Anhua Tea Factory are using the traditional method of pressing dark tea leaves into solid tea stacks. These massive tea blocks contain up to 40 kilograms each. This way of packing tea began 200 years ago. The goal was to reduce the volume of the tea as much as possible, so it could be easily carried by horse and transportation costs could be kept down.
先闻其香，再观汤色。第一口进去的话，可能不是很甜吧；第二口可能还有点涩味；第三口的话，你回味一下的话，是那种清香的。
好喝，非常好。这个是第几泡？泡了几次
20来泡吧。
20来泡。
啊，对。
因为我在英国，我卖茶叶是在一个袋里面，然后我就泡一点水，然后把那个袋子给扔掉。那个是不是我还可以用20次呢？As an Englishman, I not only love to drink tea, but I also like to collect old teapots. This is Anhua's local tea market, but to me, it's much more than that. It's like a museum of tea culture. 你好，这个是？
这是我们安化特有的。
这是茶壶吗？
茶壶。这样用的。
不是这样用的。
有碗，我示范给你。以前喝碗都是大碗。
Oh, look at that. Beautiful. 我可以试一下吗？ Listen to that. Oh, I love it.
这是以前喝茶的，泡茶的。
这是哪年代的？
这个是清代的。
清代的。这个是装茶叶的。
这是普通老百姓家的。
我看你这边还有70、80年代的，是吧？这也好美。这个是老的茶叶的。
老的，茶的。
这是铁的。
铁的，生铁的。100多年的历史。
100多年的历史。在你们这个店能看到中国的几百年的喝茶的历史。
我们以前山上摘茶叶的，就用这个摘。
是吗？用这个摘。Look at that, beautiful. 咔嚓咔嚓。
这些东西都挺不容易的，保存到现在。
拜拜。
In the grain rain solar term, tea leaves undergo a growth spurt, and this is also the busiest time for producing tea. Anhua is a famous tea region where dark tea is mass-produced for export. But at this special time of year, during the grain rain solar term, there is a tea so delicious and specific to one day that it's almost impossible to get your hands on. Xiao Tao's father, Tao Zhangqiu, is a local Anhua tea expert.
你写什么呢？
喝了桂茶，闯遍天下都不怕。所以我们这里家家户户都喝桂茶。
那明天就是谷雨。
你来的正好，
我来的正好。
明天5点钟要上山去采茶叶，最好是12点之前回家马上加工，要在6点钟之前把它做完。这个茶就是真正的桂茶。
在同一天。
同一天。
Grain rain solar term is the last solar term of spring. It is also the wettest time of year. Rainfall at night stimulates the plant's growth. Anhua is a special place. Due to 600-million-year-old rock formations in this area, rainwater is drawn into the land, and the tea plants absorb important nutrients from the rock and soak up the sunlight from above. Yuntai Mountain, I heard, is where some of the world's finest teas originated from. 6 o'clock in the morning, and the locals are already busy picking tea.
我们就在这摘是吧？
啊。谷雨的茶，就是要当天采摘。当天制作，这才叫真正的谷雨茶。由于这时候气温稳定，它的叶回胀，内含物相当丰富。这是1芽，2叶
，1芽2叶。
哎，
这个是芽
啊，对，
这个是叶。
对。
This is the ya, which is actually a leaf as well. And here is the ye, which is the leaf. So right from the top of the plant, we've got the lightest green, most beautiful tea leaves you can ever imagine. 也不管这芽有多么小，这么小也可以是吧？
是啊，这就最好啊。
这是最好的。
对啊。
这个是国语的椰子啊，它跟下个礼拜的椰子有什么区别呢？
下个礼拜要少许绿一点。现在少许浅一点，它就嫩一些。
反正谷雨茶在村里也是没人卖，是吧？
谷雨茶很少的，不卖的，
不卖的，
不卖的，自己喝，
自己喝，
个人喝的。
啊，是这样的。
Just like most industries, China now has machinery to pick the tea leaves. But here in Anhua, people insist on picking by hand. The reason why this particular tea is pickled by hand is because only the most experienced tea pickers understand exactly which tea leaves need to be picked on this one day of the year.
And look at this. I've picked lots of tea. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Hey, 我看了这周围还有什么养的鸡什么的。
这个鸡很好啊，它吃虫子，它也可以除草。
I got him! Chicken! Hello! This chicken is also part of the farm here. He eats the insects and the worms that go on the tea. He also fertilizes the soil and eats the grass. I'll let you go. 在新西兰，我还认识一个人，他是做葡萄酒。他养的是羊，他就是这么矮，他也是吃不到那个葡萄。
Lei tea is another specialty of Anhua. Lei means ground, and every season locals add the freshest tea to rice, peanuts, sesame and ginger, crushed together to make a tea mix for the whole neighborhood. Anhua locals are particularly warm and hospitable. They know that on the day of Guyu, tea pickers need to hurry to process the new tea leaves. So every household will prepare a tea for the pickers to drink while they work.
好喝吧？爷爷奶奶打的。
我头一次有这么一个这么鲜的一个茶。
这个是呢，就是古语的清水擂茶，年年喝。
I'm not going to pretend that I like this. It's actually not very nice. It's yeah, it's like a salty peanut drink with some tea leaves in it. 谢谢你，谢谢，谢谢。
Guyu tea is a green tea. The key is to frying it at a high temperature, and the Chinese call it shaqing, because when you kill the life in the tea with heat, you fix in its taste at that point in time.
先全部都
对，全部倒。杀青我们的原则是，第一，高温有220度左右；第二，就是动作要快；第三呢，人也老杀。哦，what？
这锅里就是它。Look at this, beautiful. First time I've ever fried tea with my hands, and I tell you, it's a good job I've got these gloves on because this pot is hot. There's smoke billowing up from right under my legs as well. Really, a very unique way to make tea. This is the only tea that you pick and you drink on the same day. So you've got to fry it to get all this moisture out. Oh,
这就有香味了，啊，
香。
这古语茶它的香就是清香。
Oh, my hands are getting hot. 我把这个搁进去。
好，这个是嫩叶，嫩叶的时候它炒了以后啊，要散开，再少许焖一下，
就 OK 了
啊，
这就可以做茶。
要揉，还要揉啊，
还要揉
要不是揉啊，
怎么揉呢？
这样啊，这就是这样，要有出水汁来，啊，有出汁来以后啊，那就是最好了。往前推，对，往前滚，对，
这样的。
啊，对。
哦， Whew. Hands are sticky. 这我头一次真的学到这个茶叶的这个的方式，我还以为茶叶你就直接摘，放水里泡。我还真不懂。
还要揉哎。
还要揉。
啊，还要揉。
哎。
A lot of skill goes into rolling the tea leaves. Fresh and tender leaves like Guyu tea takes about an hour until all the moisture has left the leaves. It's not an easy thing to get right. What is very special about Guyu tea is that it's picked and made on the very same day in spring. Everything is done in accordance with traditional techniques, completely handmade. Mr. Tao said this is the only way to make the very best, perfect cup of tea. For Anhua locals, Guyu is a day of making tea, but also of worshipping ancestors, Tangjie. According to legend, 4,000 years ago, Tangjie observed the form of all things in the world and made the very first Chinese character. God was touched, throwing grain down as if it were rain. That's why this day is known as Guyu, grain rain. It might just be legend, but it is the most romantic interpretation of how Chinese characters and the Guyu festival began.
Today I也带了我自己的茶，是我自己摘的，也是自己炒的。
这茶做得很好，
做得很好。
味道很浓。
对呀，这个是刚摘的嘛，所以它应该香。这个水的温度要讲究嘛
，80度
，80度，是吧？
古语茶，这一天采这里茶啊，香味这样，
是挺香的。美观怎么样，老师？
碎叶比较多，条形不够整直，
没有理条，没有去把它整漂亮。
因为我没有耐心。
可是下一次做的时候，我一定要把它理好。
Now, I've lived in China for over 24 years, and the Chinese people have a saying for absolutely everything. Now, here's an important one. The Chinese people say they cannot live without 7 things: wood, rice, oil, salt, sauce, vinegar, and tea. Tea is incredibly important, and it has such a high status. The grain rain solar term doesn't just mean the kind of moist rained upon earth on which grows grain. It has much more going for it than that. The long-standing Anhua tea culture is exemplified by this solar term. For 2,000 years, it's been a long love affair between Chinese people and tea.